Hi everyone, I hope all of you are able to hear me. We'll just wait for a quick confirmation from YouTube and then we'll get started with the session. So today's agenda is very simple. We are going to talk about what you're supposed to do after CAT, and I have a couple of slides with me that I'm going to share with you. Broadly 4 agenda points that I'm going to cover. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the YouTube chat. I'm going to monitor that and take as many questions as possible as part of this session. Okay. So I'll just wait for a quick confirmation and then we'll start. I hope all of you are doing well. Hope the CAT went well for you. And if there are any queries, you can just put it in the comment section and I'll have a look at that. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, cool. Thanks for the confirmation. Rishi, I'll be taking that as part of the session. So let's start and I'll answer your query as well. So let's start with the session, and the first thing is, of course, for some of you, maybe CAT was not that great, maybe it was a bit of a shock for you. For some of you, it went well, for some of you, it went beyond your expectations as well. So whatever it is, it's okay, right? So the point that I want to start with is that no matter what has happened, whether it went well, it didn't go well, or whatever it is, it's okay. We do not have a time travel machine. We cannot go back in time and change what happened. So don't worry about that. Accept that this is the reality. But definitely I'll sit and figure out what went wrong. Let's say if something hasn't worked for you, what exactly happened, right? So maybe let's say you didn't prepare quant enough. Now, the only thing that you can do is look forward and figure out what is it that you can do with the rest of the test so that this situation doesn't happen again, right? So, I am going to focus on these 4 things because generally once the test gets done, right, for a couple of days at least people keep thinking about the test, and because even I was an aspirant at a point of time, I understand that sentiment very well. So you keep thinking about the test and you keep thinking, okay, I should have done this, I should have done that, and so on and so forth. You keep worrying about, let's say, some technical issue that happened during the test, or maybe the invigilators were really loud during the test, and so on and so forth, right? So we keep thinking about all these things. But once that phase is done, you have to think of, okay, what is the next thing for me? So maybe taking 1 or 2 day break is always recommended. For example, if you're not studying today, you didn't study anything after CAT yesterday. I hope people didn't study after CAT and you got a nice break. But if you don't study today, if you don't study tomorrow, I think that's still okay. But let me come back stronger. Let me figure out what is the next thing for me and work towards that. Okay. So I can see some of you have started asking questions about what would be the expected percentile, etc. But see, in this session, I'm not going to cover that because we've already covered that extensively yesterday. So for every slot, we had a detailed live analysis video. You can just have a look at that particular thing, or you can look at the comparison of the 3 slot, which is what we did yesterday, end of the day. So you can have a look at that, right? So cutoffs, obviously now everybody knows that they're going to be higher compared to last year because of the easy DLR section and the quant section compared to last year. So it's obvious that the cutoffs will go up, but I would suggest that you look at those videos. They are there on the channel, and there you will find detailed analysis in terms of score versus percentile as well, right? So have a look at that rather than us discussing it at this point of time, because again, that starting point, right, that we just have to accept the reality now, right? So whatever anyway in the response sheet would be out in a few days from now. Last year, I think it was out within 10 days. So if we look at that, hopefully by in the first week of December itself, you will know how much you are scoring in terms of the raw score in each of the sections, and then there will be a better percentile estimate that you will have. Post that, you can figure out, okay, what colleges I should be applying to, and so on and so forth, correct? So today I'll focus on these 4 things because I want all of you to, once you have taken that break, maybe 1 or 2 days of no preparation break, after that you are supposed to focus on these things. Okay, so let's do that first and start talking about each of these things. So first thing that I want people to focus on is the ADMAT preparation. Now, why ADMATs, right? Because firstly, it's always better to create more options, right? Those of you who were not thinking about additional tests, depending on how you have done in the CAT, you can now start thinking about that as well. And it's always better to create more options and understand that rejection is better than regret, right? So if you take more tests and through that you create more options, right, that is always better. And even if you apply to some places, let's say one test doesn't work for you, that is still okay, rather than me regretting later that, oh, I should have taken this test. So a lot of times we have students coming and saying that, oh, I should have taken MyCat, I should have taken SNAP. But why do you make that statement? Instead of that, why don't you just apply for the test and see what happens? Now, of course, there are some tests where the deadline has already passed, you will not be able to apply for them, but you have ZAT ahead of you, you have let's say MyCat 2 ahead of you, you're going to have CMAT ahead of you. So there are still a lot of tests that are remaining. Now, if you already applied to, let's say, an NMAT or a SNAP, they are going to happen for you from now on till December. You have the dates for SNAP as well. So you have all those things ahead of you. So take more tests and see what happens to you, and then you can always, if you don't want to go to a certain college, you can always reject the institute rather than the institute rejecting you, which I'll again cover as we talk about the B School application strategy. Now, the second thing is, how do you prepare for these tests? So the CAT content that you have done, the CAT preparation that you have done all these months, that will help you to do well in the other test as well. So it's not going to be something which is completely new, but there is a test specific content that you will have to do. For example, if you look at, say, an NMAT, you have to do the data sufficiency kind of questions. You have to do a lot of grammar, you have to do vocabulary, you have to do questions involving logical puzzles, blood relations, coding, decoding, series based questions, and so on. So all of these test specific things you will have to do. But CAT content will take care of 70-75% or even 80% in some cases of the content which is there for other exams. So think of CMAT, for example. Now it has only 2 additional sections that you haven't done for CAT, which is GK and innovation and entrepreneurship. So I'll prepare for those 2 specifically if I'm thinking of CMAT. When it comes to ZAT, I will think of additionally decision making. I'll think of GK as a section. That's the additional part that I'll work on. But majority of my content is going to come through the CAT content that I've already prepared for. Of course, now if there were any topics that you hadn't done while you were preparing for the CAT, let's say you left the entire P&C, this might be the right time to actually pick that up and say, okay, let me work on my basic P&C skills so that these other exams at least I'll be able to do reasonably well. The next thing that you should do is full length practice test, because see, all of these tests, as I said, the 70-75% intersection that exists with the CAT syllabus, you still have to get adjusted to the format of the test, because not everybody will be readily in a position to take a particular test which is a completely different format test. A lot of people find it very difficult to move from, let's say, the CAT style, which is you have 2 hours, you have 40 minutes for each section, to something like, let's say, an NMAT, which is an adaptive test where you have to attempt each and every question and you can see only one question at a time, right? There's no element of choice in that case. Versus if you compare that with, say, a SNAP, which is a 60-minute 60 question test, so it's like a T20 game where you have to be really, really fast. Compare that with something like a CMAT where you have more time and you have less number of questions. So it's more of a content based test rather than anything else. So every test has a different format. The only way to get adapted and adjusted to that is through practice test, which is going to be full length practice test. And those of you who are IMS students, of course, you're going to have a lot of these things available in your dashboard and we'll be releasing them very soon. Some of it we already released. For example, NMAT mocks are already there, SNAP mocks are there. You'll have ZAT mocks in the next few weeks. You're also going to have your CMAT mocks, right? So a lot of these things will be provided to you, so you don't have to worry about that. But even if you, let's say, you're not an IMS student and wherever you are maybe preparing on your own or you have joined somewhere, you can start taking full length practice tests because that will really help you. Now, as I said, for IMS students, the module 5 of IMS courseware. So those of you who are CAT students with us, right, you have module 1 to module 4 is specifically for CAT. But if you look at module 5, it has coverage which is for all these additional tests. So have a look at the module 5, that is the one that you should be doing, that's the first thing. And then you do the master classes. So we have 20 ADMAT master classes and these are with video solutions. So have a look at this, it will really help you and make a difference in your ADMAT preparation. And finally, a lot of students ask, how do I prioritize, right? So should I do NMAT prep first or SNAP prep first or whatever? Now, simply you follow the calendar, right? So whatever comes first, you focus on that. So considering SNAP is going to be on 8th December, if I'm going to take SNAP, my focus from now on till 8th December is going to be SNAP. if I'm in between taking NMAT, I will take mocks of both NMAT and SNAP, let's say on alternate days, so that I'm in shape for both of these tests. But if I'm thinking of, let's say, ZAT, right, I don't have to do those mocks till 8 December. I can take it later as well because I have time for ZAT, right? We still have quite a bit of time. Those of you are thinking CMAT, for example, it's in the last week of Jan. So you're going to have enough time for that. I will always prioritize on the basis of what is going to happen first, and let me focus on that. If 2 exams are happening, as I said, you take mocks on alternate days of the 2 tests for which you are preparing. Now that brings us to the next thing, which is B school application. So again, with respect to B school application, students generally have this thing that how many B school should I apply to? Will I get a call? Will I not get a call? So I have to have a strategy around my entire application. So when you look at the B school application strategy, I would suggest that you have a list which contains dream institutes, realistic institutes, and definite institutes. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're somebody who is expected to get a 95 percentile, but I have aspiration of colleges that are, let's say, 97 percentile cutoff or 98 percentile cutoff. Those are dream colleges for me. So it's okay to apply to a few dream institutes because you never know what will happen as the actual outcome. So in some cases you have to apply before CAT result is announced. In that case, because you're not going to have perfect information with you, you will still have to take a shot by making an application because it's a dream institute for you. The second is going to be realistic, right? So if I'm expecting to get a 95 percentile, anything that is in the 94 to 96 range or maybe a 93 to 97 range, that may be realistic for me. So that is why I'm going to apply to at least 4 to 5 such institutes that are super realistic for me. And finally, I have a definite list of colleges. For example, if I'm expected to get a 95, there are some institutes that have a cutoff of say a 90, 91, 92 percentile. Those become definite institutes for me because I'll definitely get a call. If I look at last 3 years of a particular, let's say, institute, and I realize that cutoff has always been around 92 percentile, I'm expected to get a 95, it's a definite institute for me. Now, some of you may think that, okay, typically those will be slightly lower ranked institute compared to the realistic institute, but that's okay. See, you can always reject the institute rather than you saying that, okay, you can reject the institute once the institute has given you a convert. But right now, if you keep rejecting institutes, you might be in a situation later wherein you don't have choices. So the objective that we have is very simple, that at the end of all of this exercise, you should have at least one convert. And how to achieve that is to have that perfect balance of application where you have dream institutes, realistic institutes, and definite institutes. The second thing that I'll suggest is that you divide the business schools, because there are too many of them. Divide those in 2 categories. One is where you have to make an application before CAT result, and I'm saying before test result because there are other tests as well. For example, in case of SNAP, different institutes that accept the SNAP score have different deadlines. So you have to decide that, okay, should I make an application right now or should I wait? And that decision will be taken basis what is the deadline of application. So if the application deadline is before test result, okay, now the test has been conducted, before test result you have the application deadline, you have to estimate how much will I get, will I be in the range of the typical cutoffs or more than that, then I can apply. But if the institute has a deadline after test result, do I have to apply for the institute right now? The answer is no. You can wait. And that is the next point that I have, which is you don't have to apply just because the application has started. You can apply a little later as well, but ensure that you're applying 7 to 10 days before the deadline with maximum information. And what I mean by maximum information is if you have, let's say, test score additionally, right? The test score comes out, you now know what is that test score, so you have additional information. Or let's say you are pursuing some kind of an internship, right? And that internship is getting over at a particular period. So now when you go for when you fill the application, you will be able to enter that, okay, I've completed this internship rather than saying I'm currently doing it. Or let's say if you are pursuing a particular course or a certification, in that case also, if you complete it, that is going to be more beneficial to you rather than you saying I'm currently pursuing it, because there is no stage in which you are that you will be able to explain to the panel. So instead, it's better to apply with maximum possible information available as a very strategic thing to do, right? So I will not wait for the last date also, because generally on the last date you may have some technical issues and all of that. but instead I'll keep a buffer of 7 to 10 days and apply to whichever institute. So where to track now, which I'll of course tell you, we have a dedicated place for that, and you may have to revise the list, because see, ultimately whatever we have right now, let's say with respect to CAT as well, and a lot of you have asked about your predictions in terms of percentile and all of that. All of the predictions are predictions. They may or may not be exactly true. So once you have the actual score, your list may have to be revised. So everybody is saying, let's say you may get a 95 percentile, and you suddenly end up getting, let's say, a 96 or a 97. Your list is going to change. Or let's say people are saying you should be getting 90 and you get an 88. Again, the list is going to change. So that is why your list may need a bit of a revision depending on, let's say, the actual results that you get. Now, where do you track all these deadlines? So we have a dedicated place for that. We'll also put a link in the description. I'm assuming that a lot of you have already started using this, but just in case you haven't, bschoolzone.imsindia.com. Students, so IMS students of course can also access it through My IMS. You have to log in and click on B School Zone at the top, and you will be able to reach this website. So on this website, it's a open thing for everybody. You can keep a track of all the application deadlines, all the test deadlines, and you will find a lot of college information regarding cutoffs, etc. of the past years on this particular page. Okay, so have a look at this. I'm sure it will help you out. Now that brings us to the third thing, which is GDPI preparation. Now some of you may be thinking it's too early for me, I don't even have any calls, etc. I don't know how much am I going to score. So should I be thinking of also GDPI preparation? The answer is yes, okay, because see, you always should be hopeful of getting some or the other call. And if you follow the advice that I gave you on the last slide, right, which is creating a list which has a combination of dream institutes, realistic institutes, and definite institutes, you will end up with calls. So you don't want to be in a situation where you got a call, but you don't know how to, let's say, face the interview or how to approach a group discussion, right? Or a writing ability test, whatever is applicable as part of the selection process. So in that case, what I'm going to do is, I will start following news. Now, with respect to CAT aspirant, generally we have seen this, that because in the last 1 month, I'm assuming a lot of people didn't even read newspapers, because you were so engrossed in just preparing for the test, you're taking mock tests and all of that. So maybe you lost a little bit of a touch, or you were never into reading, which may also be true. So what you need to do from now on is just start reading newspapers. That is one good way to stay in touch with what is happening with current affairs, because no matter whether you think of it from an interview perspective or a GD VAT perspective or a test perspective, having GK preparation done is always going to help you, right? So it is also going to take care of a lot of tests that have GK section. So CMAT has GK, MyCat has GK, ZAT is going to have GK section. So when you prepare, when you start reading newspapers, you're also preparing for those tests. There is a GK zone on My IMS. So those of you who are IMS students, you can also start going through GK zone. We have a lot of content there, and there are practice tests as well. So you have static GK and you have current affairs. You can just start going through this. How much time to spend on this every day? I would say about 30-45 minutes, because I understand that you're also preparing for other tests simultaneously. So if you're preparing for a SNAP or an NMAT, you don't want to spend too much time on this, right? After SNAP NMAT, you can spend more time on this, because you're going to have, let's say, a ZAT, there will be a MyCat 2 as well, right? So you can spend more time then, and you'll also have calls by then. So CAT result hopefully should be out in about 3rd or 4th week of December. Last year it was what, 23rd December. So 22nd, 23rd, if we consider that to be the CAT result date. After that, you have of course ZAT, and you're going to have a lot of calls coming in the Jan 1st, 2nd, 3rd week. So because of that, if you start for this right away itself, it will help you. It will put you in a position where you have some base to improve on. So start following news on a regular basis. It also helps you for interview as well, because in interviews also we see that a lot of times questions regarding your views on a particular issue are asked, and if you don't know about that, it will be difficult to crack those interviews, right? Now regarding PI, you can still take a little bit of a time to start core PI preparation. Now that includes starting to write responses to some of the commonly asked questions. For example, tell me something about yourself. Why do you want to do an MBA? Why do you want to join this particular institute, right? So regarding your subjects that you have taken. So, or maybe let's say if you've done any internship, or if you have some work experience. So questions around that. If you start writing responses to those, again, not immediately, but I would say at least somewhere in the middle of December is the right time to start with this kind of preparation, where you just have a list of questions and you start working on that. We are going to have our GDPI course starting in the second week of December. We are trying to do it in the first week of December itself. So the official announcement will follow. We always have a GDPI course that we run, but the official announcement will be made very, very soon as to when we are going to start. And then of course mock interviews. So as part of the GDPI prep course that we have, we also help students to get mock interviews, which is included in it. And once you take those, you really realize what is it that I need to improve on. Okay, so start working on this. But as I said, this you can start right away, which is the GK preparation, reading current affairs, following news, etc. PI preparation you can still start a little later, somewhere in the middle of December, once your major tests are done. So for those of you who are taking NMAT and SNAP, if NMAT and SNAP is done, right, after that you can start working on the personal interview preparation. Okay. Now the last thing, right, the fourth thing that I want to talk about is profile building, because I understand that a lot of you had taken a break for CAT preparation. So maybe you are doing it completely or just exclusively focused on CAT preparation. You are not doing anything else. Now in that case, when you go for the interviews, let's say if you are a 24 graduate or a 23 graduate, there are going to be questions as to what did you do with the time that was available. See, because the panelists also know that you cannot be preparing for CAT for let's say 10-12 hours a day, right? So if you slept for 8 hours, if you studied for 8 hours, what did you do with the remaining 8 hours, right? That's the question. Now, if you don't have an answer to that question, and it's okay to say I was preparing for CAT full time because I wanted to focus on it, it's not the best answer that can be given. So that is why you should start working on improving your profile a little bit, right? So you still have some time. You can take up some of these things. So those of you who let's say do not have great academic record, and you have let's say your college exams happening very soon, let's say in December, I would suggest that you also focus on that and try and improve your grades, because in a lot of cases you will be going for interviews somewhere in the month of Jan, Feb, March. So if let's say you have exams in December and the result is going to be in Jan, when you go for your interviews you will have a better score, correct? And that better score you will be able to talk about it in the interview. So those of you who have your exams now, doesn't apply to people who already graduated, but those of you who are still in college, you can start working on this thing. The second is going to be extracurricular. Again, applicable to people who are in college, more applicable to people who are in college, is extracurricular. So you can be a part of something, right? Maybe let's say you have a festival coming up in December or Jan, you can be associated with that, or you can participate in some of the events that are happening, right? So you still have some scope. And again, you have to identify what are the elements that I want to work on. It's not a vanilla advice that everybody should do everything that is mentioned on this, because that will not make sense. So I have to figure out whether I need to work on this. Those of you who already have positions of responsibility in your college, you already have done a lot of extracurriculars, then you don't have to do it. And let's say, but if you have ignored your college subjects in that process, work on your college grades first of all. The third thing could be pursuing some courses or certifications. So we are going to have a lot of courses, certifications that are available, for example, on Coursera, and we also have a section on our website, on the IMS India website, called Profile Building, where you can check out these Coursera courses that are there, right? So we have also given a list of recommended courses for MBA aspirants. Please check it out, and you can do some of them. So doing these courses, certification, generally it will not take you a lot of time to do it. Effort can be somewhere in the range of 20, 30, 40 hours as well. So even if you decide that, okay, in the next 20 days, I'm going to take out 2 hours a day and I'm going to complete a certification, it's possible to do that. So figure out if there's anything that will help you to build a stronger case for the interview that you will be appearing for. The next could be job or internship. So those of you who, let's say, had taken a break and you want to get back to whatever job or industry you were in, you can do that as well, because we still have enough time before the college actually begins, right? The colleges will start in June. So what is your plan before you get there, right? So I would rather have some sort of a job or an internship at least, so that when I go for interviews I can talk about it. Especially true for people who didn't do anything after they graduated in 24, I can take up an internship right now because I'm done with major exam, like which CAT is done. NMAT SNAP, let's say, gets done in December. So let me at least start searching for internships. It will take a couple of days or weeks to actually find one. And once I find that, let's say if I start in Jan, when I go for interviews, I can talk about it. So let me figure out what are the gaps on my profile and find avenues that will help me to bridge that gap. And lastly, it could be community work, right? So any volunteering that you want to do. Let's say you realize that on your profile you have all of this, but you don't have, say, a community work thing, or you don't have any volunteering experience. Maybe it's a good idea to get that done. Okay, so again, I'm not saying everything should be done by everybody. You have to figure out whether you really want to do it or not, and whether it will help you to make a stronger profile. Okay, so have a look at that. Again, community work also, don't do it just because I've written it here. You evaluate whether you want to do it or not. If you feel passionate about the cause, then you do it. Otherwise, it's okay to not have a few things. But let me work on whatever it is that will make my case better, right? Because see, ultimately, when you go for the interview, the panelist wants to know if you are the right fit in this particular institute or not. The more things you have to talk about, the better it is, obviously. So that is why work on some of these things, right? So a quick review of the things that we discussed. We first started with, so I'll just take you quickly through this because we already discussed it enough. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the ADMAT prep, right, that we spoke about. So ADMAT prep, very, very important. Start working on ADMATs because the race is still not over. No matter what has happened in the CAT, you still have other exams, and there are thousands of examples of people who didn't do well on the CAT but have done exceedingly well on the other test because the format works for them, the style, the kind of things that it requires works for them, or whatever. For example, if you look at, say, something like a SNAP, it's a speed based exam. So people who are very, very good at speed and logical puzzles and solving questions very, very fast, for them that test is going to be suitable. But for people who are, let's say, more on the content side, right, maybe a ZAT is a more suitable test. For people who are looking at, let's say, something like a marketing, advertising, communication, definitely have a look at MyCat because the actual cutoffs are on the lower side, right? Because it's a combination of CAT plus MyCat or a ZAT plus MyCat. So you still have a lot of opportunities. So start working on the ADMAT preparation. The next thing that we spoke about was the B School application. So start following B School Zone, wherein you have all the updates regarding the applications, the deadlines and all of that, and the college specific information that you may be looking for. Third thing that we discussed was GDPI preparation. So take baby steps towards this. Start with reading newspapers on a regular basis and also follow the GK zone on MyMS. And somewhere in the second half of December, you can start working on actually drafting your answers for some of the commonly asked interview questions. And finally, for profile building, depending on whatever it is that you want to work on, you decide 1 or 2 activities that you can take up in December or Jan and just pursue that. Okay, so it will help you to build a stronger case for your application. Okay, so that's about it. That's it. That's what I wanted to share. Now I'll move on to questions. I'm going to be taking all the questions, so that we decided to keep the format as partly like a session and partly AMA, so that I can take the questions that the audience has. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the last couple of queries that I can see. Ashrita has asked for NMAT, any strategy for quant. Okay. So first things first, for NMAT, the most important thing is to get adjusted to the format of the test, because it's a different test altogether. You have 52 minutes, you have 36 questions. So every 13 minutes, you basically have to do 9 questions. And there is a penalty for not attempting all the questions. So I have to ensure that I'm pacing myself properly. So that strategy you can get better at only if you take mock test. Now we have given 10 mock tests total for NMAT. In addition to that, you have 2 official mock tests which are there in your NMAT by GMAC dashboard. So 10 plus 2, 12 is more than enough. You don't need more than that. So I would suggest that you start with mocks. Now regarding content specific, if there's anything that you didn't do for CAT, let's say you're not done P&C, right? And P&C is asked a lot when it comes to NMAT. Let's say you're not done maybe time and work, right? So you're going to get those questions on the NMAT. So what I'll do is I'll start working on these things that I didn't do for CAT or I didn't do properly for the CAT. With respect to NMAT quant, there's no time speed distance, there is no geometry. So these two areas I'll not work a lot on because that will not give me a lot of great returns when it comes to NMAT. But see, they're still valid for SNAP and ZAT. So I cannot say that I'm not going to practice anything from time speed distance or anything from geometry because it's there for other tests. But if I'm exclusively thinking of NMAT, I can live with by not doing, let's say, the geometry and the time speed distance topics. Okay, Madhulika, can we do CFA level 1 for profile building? Sure, you can do that, but again, check if you have enough time before you actually complete it, right? CFA is going to be fairly expensive thing, so that decision cannot be simply taken on a session like this. I would say that you evaluate your overall profile, see if you want to make that sort of an investment, and in the long run, if you're planning to complete all 3 levels of CFA, then yes, it makes sense. But just because a lot of other people are doing it, if I'm taking that decision, it may not be very sensible thing to do. Is accuracy more important in NMAT quant? Its accuracy is important in all the sections of NMAT, so it's not only about quant section. NMAT is a very different ball game, right? So have a look at the NMAT analysis that we had done on 5th November. Have a look at that, it's there on the channel and it will help you with strategy. Zayed, how should one approach SNAP prep in 12 days, right? So we have roughly 12 days, 13 days ahead of us. For SNAP, again, start taking mocks, right? So you have 10 mocks that are there in your dashboard. Have a look at them, take 1 or 2 just to understand the format first of all and decide your strategy of attempt. So SNAP, if you ask me my strategy, I start with verbal. Initial 7-8 minutes is on that. Then I move to quant. I do round 1 of quant where I do all easy questions from quant. Then I go to LR, again do the same thing, which is all the easy questions. And from there on, depending on wherever, whatever questions are remaining, I sort of jump between the quant and the LR sections, right? So that's how I look at it. But again, you can frame your own strategy that works for you. Okay, Nitya, any preparation strategy for SNAP for someone who did not write the CAT? Okay, so in that case, let's say if you're a CET, CMAT student with us, your courseware, the core courseware that you have got, that is enough for preparation. So additionally, the only thing that I'll suggest is going to be the ADMAT masterclasses that we have. And I'll take more and more mocks because see, ultimately that is something that is needed at this point of time. Because preparation, more or less, I'm assuming you're completed. If there are any specific areas that I have not done, I'll do that. See, if you look at SNAP, for example, right, they always ask questions on figures of speech, right? They always ask questions which are technical grammar questions. So to get those 2 or 3 marks, I have to do grammar very, very well. So I'll focus on that, correct? RC, because see, if you have prepared for CAT or you're not prepared for CAT, you have still done quite a few RCs. So I'm not going to spend more time doing RCs because I already know how to do it. But if there's anything technical, right, which is grammar, for example, let me work on that, correct? So both it will help me for NMAT as well as SNAP. How much cutoff is expected for TIS? A little difficult to say honestly at this point of time because they'll be accepting CAT for the very first time. But looking at the kind of admit rate that they have, etc., I think at least to get a call somewhere in the range of 93 to 95 is what my expectation is. Because the number of seats is also on the lower side. So it's not unlike, let's say, some of the private MBA colleges. They do not have 400, 500 seats, right? They have very limited seats. Considering that, I think at least a 93, 95 would be needed. But let's see, it's too early to talk about it. We never know. It could be even a little bit high, let's say a 96, 97. Okay, I watched your MyCat video and you mentioned a specific MyCat GK and GK section of IMS. I can't find it on my account. Is it not available? Okay, so AD, till last year we used to give test specific GK, but then we decided to change it and now we have GK which is applicable to all the tests, right? Because that one didn't make a lot of difference. So we realized that there isn't significant difference between one test GK and the other test GK. Even if you look at MyCat, earlier they used to ask a lot about brands, which is something that they have kind of changed in the last 1 or 2 years. So whatever GK is, it's basically applicable to all the tests. But I will still suggest that you have a look at a few brand specific GK questions. Okay, ZAT quant strategy. Aniket, luckily in the last few years, ZAT quant has become slightly easier. So if it is more on the CAT level now, earlier it used to be more difficult than CAT. But now if you look at, let's say, the last 1 year of preparation, if you're done for CAT, whatever prep that you have done is enough. I will definitely have a look at the past ZAT papers, at least the last 3-4 years. I will solve all the quant questions and the topics from which those questions have appeared, and that should suffice. Okay, not sure about CAT results, should I register for ZAT? Absolutely, you should definitely register for ZAT and see what happens. ZAT is a different test, CAT is a different test, right? The competition level is different, the people, the audience may be also a little bit different, the kind of colleges that they want to get in is different. So have a look at applying to ZAT as well. Okay, are there any good courses which you can do while preparing for other management tests? As I said, you can go to imsindia.com. There is a section called profile building. Have a look at that. There are Coursera 1 month, 3 month, 6 month access programs. In that you will also find a list of recommended courses. So have a look at that. NMAT paper strategy in general. So I have covered it extensively as part of my session that I did on the 5th November. But just to sort of give a quick take as many tests as possible, because that will help you to get adapted to the format. There is a penalty for not attempting all the questions, so ensure that you are pacing yourself properly. And whenever I see that okay, I'm lagging behind a little bit, I will do a course correction. So I'll go a little bit faster. Even in that process, if I have to take some random half chances, I'll have to do that. I had mentioned it in my analysis that I could not complete 2 questions in quant, and I randomly marked one of the input output sets because I was not able to crack it. So these things you may have to do as part of taking the test, because sometimes you just can't solve a particular question, and that's okay. I'm scoring 220 in IMS NMAT mocks, is that alright? Looks good, Priya. I think 220 is a decent score in IMS mocks. You should definitely try and push it a little bit, and I hope you're able to do it in the next few days. Shivam Pal, anything about SNAP decision making section? SNAP does not have a decision making section. SNAP just has your English section, there is a logic section, and then there is a quant section. Okay, fact Baba, SIBM Pune core is good or not in comparison with new IMs? Okay, so we are not going to do institute comparison right now, because firstly you don't have IM calls and you don't have SIBM Pune call as well. What I'll recommend is, see, when you look at a particular test and that test has, let's say, 3 or 4 best colleges through that test. For example, SNAP, SIBM Pune is the #1 institute that you can target through SNAP. So there are so many people who join the institute every single year, and so many students who have great outcomes from that institute. So I'm not going to reject an institute outright and say it's not a good institute, right? So the question becomes valid if you have converts and then you are saying, okay, fine, I have converts from say an SIBM Pune, an NMIMS and something else. Then for my profile, what would be the best thing that I can do so that I have a better outcome at the end of it? So college comparison questions, I think all of us can always discuss it, and it's an endless discussion that we can keep doing. But at this point of time, that discussion is not going to make a lot of sense. I'll suggest that you apply and then see what happens, right? If you convert it, you can always reject an institute. So when I was a student, I had rejected, ultimately I had only 3 converts, right? So I rejected 2 converts that I got. And it was a nice feeling that there are these 2 colleges that are saying, hey, come and join us, and I'm saying, okay, I don't want to join, right? So it's a good position to be in. I'll say apply and then decide what you want to do. Okay, I'm an IMS student, my CAT didn't go well, have my NMAT on 2nd December, haven't prepared anything for NMAT till now. Considering that I have prepared for CAT, what should I do in the next 6 days for NMAT? I'll take 1 mock every single day. Okay, so in the same slot that I have for NMAT, in the same time slot, I'll also ensure that I'm able to complete the entire paper. So I'll push myself, go fast a little bit, make a few mistakes in that process, and that's completely okay. I'll get completely used to the format of the test, right? Then I will, whatever mistakes that I'm making, so you realize that okay, input output questions I'm not able to answer, I will go to ADMAT master classes and have a look at input output questions. Or you realize, let's say data sufficiency I'm not able to solve, again go to ADMAT master classes, do data sufficiency, or go to module 5 of CAT courseware and learn concepts from that. So that is the path that I will take. NMAT does not have negative marking. There is a penalty for not completing the test. Okay, so if you do not complete all the questions of a particular section, you get penalized for that. That penalty is something that they have never released in public domain as to what is the extent of the penalty, but the penalty is there. Snigdha, could you please elaborate about MyCAT exam? The pattern seems to be very diverse and confusing, and how can we prepare for it? Okay, so with respect to MyCAT, you have three parts to the test. You start with psychometric test, which has behavioral questions. Then you have the descriptive writing section where there are 4 questions and you have to type in the responses. And then you have 80 minutes of aptitude test, right? Which is there are 4 subsections in that part. You can jump between the different subsections that are there. So that is core aptitude, which also includes 20 questions of GK. So on the IMS YouTube channel, you will find a video. Just search for psychometric test workshop for MyCAT, and you will find a video in which we have covered the entire thing. So how do you prepare for the psychometric test, and how do you prepare for the descriptive writing section, with some actual examples also that we have taken. The part of the aptitude part of it prep remains more or less the same. Now last year MyCAT Quant was as difficult as CAT Quant last year. Now let's see what happens this year. We don't know, but if it turns out to be very, very difficult, the strategy is going to be simple: maximize using the other areas, right? So you have the divergent and convergent thinking, you have English section. So I'll work on those things more and just do the bare minimum that I can in the quant section. Because quant honestly of MyCAT last year was very, very difficult. I was actually irritated while taking the test as to what was I experiencing, right? Because typically MyCAT does not have a lot of difficult questions. My speed is low. How do I increase my speed, right? So speed is a function of repetition, right? So the more you practice something repeatedly, you will develop speed in that particular thing. So there are 2 aspects to work on. One is my in general reading speed. So if you read more, let's say you read a lot of newspapers or novels, your reading speed increases. The second thing is in a quant question specifically, what are the steps that I'm supposed to take to answer a particular question? So I have to revise those steps a couple of times before I get better at it, right? So when somebody says my salary increased by 30%, in my mind, if that into 1.3 comes, then basically I've achieved mastery in this particular topic, right? That I just know initial into 1.3 is final, correct? And if somebody says no, there is a 30% drop after that, if I'm thinking of into 0.7, basically I've understood the whole topic. So I will repeat those steps in my head a couple of times to really grasp it, and that will help me to get faster, right? So these 2 aspects you will have to work on. NMAT मॉक्स में LR में सारे क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट नहीं हो पाए मुझसे. आई फेल्ट इट वाज लेंदी. व्हाट टू डू? So Vaish, you will have to sometimes compromise on your accuracy to be fast. Okay, so you will have to make these split-second decisions where you say, okay, fine, I'll go with this. I'll not overthink, right? So the reading speed, I agree what you're talking about, and you have to go really, really fast in LR to complete it. Even again applicable to quant. I think with NMAT, the only section where people don't complain about available time is the verbal ability section, because there typically people are able to solve most of the questions. But when they come out of, let's say, the quant section and the LR section, generally there's a complaint that time was insufficient. So what I'll do is I'll practice first of all a lot of critical reasoning, because out of 36 you have 18 questions that are critical reasoning. So my critical reasoning has to be very, very good. Now this year there were 2 sets of input output that pretty much everybody got. So input output is another thing that I'll have to be good at, because that is going to be solid 8 questions out of 18 of the non-verbal reasoning part. Okay, so I'll work on critical reasoning a lot. I'll work on input output. The remaining should not be very, very difficult to do, right? So those remaining 10 questions that are there, which are standalone logical puzzles. But yes, I'll work on all of these. So you will see gradual improvement. It's not going to be that suddenly your LR score will boost, but there will maybe after 5 or 6 mocks that you take, you will see some improvement. Is NMIMS Mumbai good? I got 242 in NMAT but 65 in quants. Will I be able to get admission? Okay. 65 in quant looks a little bit difficult to me considering the past cutoff data. In the last few years, it has been 71 in quant, 69 in quant, etc. So 65 in quant looks a little bit difficult. Some of the other campuses, yes, you will get a call from them considering your overall score is 242. But for the NMIMS MBA core program, I think 65 may not be enough. But of course, let's wait for the final result. Percentile at 75 marks. Okay, so you're still asking about CAT. I thought we are over with CAT, so let's not worry about that too much. I'll say have a look at the slot in which you were because for different slots we have predicted different things. But just have a look at that analysis for your slot from yesterday and it will answer your question. Okay, please make guidance video on non-CAT exams as my CAT hasn't gone well and up to mark. Sure, we'll do that. We already have a video on how to crack NMAT. We'll do something on how to crack SNAP and CMAT and SAT, etc. Okay, how is TAPME? What is the cutoff for TAPME through NMAT? Okay, so see, all the cutoff information is there on the B School Zone website. So bschoolzone.imsindia.com. You'll find more about cutoffs there. I think TAPME is around 225 if my memory serves me right. And yeah, you should be targeting at least that much to get a TAPME call. MyCat GK sources for branding and advertisements. Okay. So I'll leave a source in the description once the video gets released. It's an external source, but it's something that has covered the Indian advertising and marketing and brand related the landscape very well. So I'll leave it in the description once the session is done. If I forget, you can just remind me by putting a comment, and I will put a link to that. Okay. Anything about logical section of SNAP? It's very similar to what you have on the NMAT in terms of the non-verbal reasoning part of it. So you have a lot of standalone logical puzzles, series-based questions, coding, decoding. You have questions on caselets, right? So those of you are prepared for quant, prepared for CAT LR section, especially the caselet formation, matrix arrangements and all of that. A lot of those questions also appear in the SNAP LR section. Okay, MyCat 2 and CMAT is on same day. It has to change. Can we mail them? You can try it out. Let's see what happens. We don't know exactly what will happen. So, but you can always mail to them and tell them that this is what it is. My CAT didn't go well in spite of scoring good in the mocks. I'm very upset. Suggest me something for SNAP and ZAT. What extra should I do? I'm an IMS student. So we spoke about it in the beginning of the session. So in case you joined in late, I would suggest that you have a look at that particular part of the discussion. But you start with the full length practice test for that particular test. Now for ZAT specifically, we are going to have a series of master classes, total 9 sessions starting from 2nd December. Okay, so 2nd December onwards, you're going to have your ZAT master classes, which will be conducted online. And in addition to that, you're going to have past ZAT papers that you can take. You're also going to have decision making practice test. So all of these resources should suffice for ZAT preparation. Is ZAT syllabus similar to CAT? Yes, pretty much, except one additional thing, which is the decision making section of the test. And IMS students will get ample practice of that through my IMS. Okay, all right. I think we are almost towards the end of the solution. The planned duration was around 50 minutes in my mind. We are almost there, but if there are any few last minute questions, I can take them. Otherwise, you can always leave your doubt as a comment and I'll try and get back at the earliest. Okay. AD, my QA DLR didn't go well in CAT. Can I do well in these areas in ADMATs? Absolutely, AD. So please don't worry about how you performed on the CAT and whether you'll have a similar performance on other tests, because there are so many examples, right? I had a student once who got a 74 percentile on the CAT. In the same year, he got into NMIMS, right? So it's not apple to apple comparison. CAT is a completely different ball game where people struggle a lot and a lot of people struggle. So it may or may not happen in other tests, right? So every test has a unique format. Personally, for example, I do very well on the NMAT. So every single year, my score has been in the top 5 of NMAT highest scores, right? Now that happens because the format really works for me as an individual. It plays very well to the strengths that I have. But I am not able to do the same thing for CAT, right? I am not in the top 5 scorers or top 5 scores of the CAT. That never happens because the test format is different. So don't think that just because CAT didn't go well, other exams will not go well, right? So you prepare and I'm sure something will work out for you. Okay. Do we have my plan slots that we can take? Okay, so you can always take whatever my plan slots that are available in your dashboard. If let's say you end up exhausting those my plans, this is specific for IMS students, you can always reach out to whoever is your mentor and you can continue to have a discussion, right? So you can always discuss anything outside the my plan windows that we have. Will we get SRCC GBO mocks in IMS course? Akshat, what we'll do is we'll put the past year papers for practice, so you can take it as a test. So that's the plan that we have, rather than creating new mock test for the test. Is NMAT also coming tough, getting a bit scared? So NMAT is an adaptive test which adapts to how you are performing on the test. So the way I perceive difficulty versus you perceive it, that is going to be different. So it's not that the test has become more difficult. Of course, compared to last year, what we have observed this year is that quant was more difficult. So no change in the LR, no change in verbal, but quant was more difficult compared to last year. But see, anybody who has prepared, right, and if the cutoffs drop, they drop for everybody. If the test becomes difficult, it becomes difficult for everybody, which means that as long as relatively you're doing better, you should still be fine. So not worry too much about these things, right? That even yesterday CAT, for example, now if the test has become easy, the cutoffs will go up, but universally people will be able to score on the higher side. So you just have to do relatively better to others. So that doesn't change. That part of the equation has never changed. Okay, Raghav, I have never tried masterclass videos. In that we have to give the test and then the explanation for it is shown, right? So you can solve an individual question and there is a text solution as well as video solution. So you can have a look at whatever you need for that particular question. Okay, I have another 3 days to prepare for NMAT. Focus on your mocks, right? So that's the only advice that I have. Which private colleges don't need sectional cutoffs? Majority of them. Right? So most of the colleges do not have sectional cutoff requirements. On the B school zone, you will find more information about the individual colleges. You can have a look at that. How much accurate will the IMS predicted score versus percentile be according to me? Okay. So I was involved in some part of the prediction exercise, at least for slot 1. See, all prediction exercises, you make some assumptions. You think this is how things will work out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? It's like investing in stock markets. You believe that company has potential, the fundamentals are looking good. You put money, sometimes you make money, sometimes you don't, right? So we should be somewhere in the range of, I think, plus or minus 3 for every section is what my hunch is at this point of time. What should be the cutoff for ISB, PGP, while at least a 92, 93, right? Because looking at the number of seats that are there, the applications that they will get, and the kind of people that they're looking for, their plan is to basically just compete with the old IMs that are there, right? So if you look at the old IMs, even if you look at every the top 6 and the academic diversity, gender diversity points, etc. also 90 plus, none of the IMs are possible, at least the old IMs, right? So I would say at least a 92, 93 on if you're thinking of an ISB, PGP while application. How much leeway would a female art student get for percentile? Depends, because see, the diversity points, right? It's a combination of gender diversity, academic diversity, and for top 6 IMs that weightage is about 5 to 6% on average. In some cases it is 10%, in some cases it is 0%. On average at old IMs about 5 to 6%. So you're looking at in the composite score somewhere a difference of 5, right? But that also depends on how the composite score is being calculated. For something like an FMS, they give 3 additional points to a female candidate. So depending on the college, that the thing will vary, but you're looking at least about a 2 to 3 percentile kind of a thing, I would say. I'm an IMS student, will I get free GDPI sessions? Okay, so those of you, again, depending on which variant you are enrolled in, either GDPI is included in the program or it is something that you have to opt for additionally. So you can just check with the center where you are enrolled. Okay. Okay, all right. So I think that covers majority of the questions. I know in the format it's not possible to take all the questions. I'm sorry if I was not able to answer your query, but you can always leave it as a comment, and I look at all the comments, by the way. So whenever I get time, when I'm traveling, I end up replying to your doubts that are there, right? So put a comment on the video after the session is done, and I'll try and get back. two things that I mentioned that I'll link to. One is a source for MyCat business specific current affairs. It's a very nice source. The second thing is I'll also link it to the session that I had done for NMAT as well as for MyCat psychometric and creative writing section. Okay. So that's it from my side. I hope this has helped you, and do not forget the things that we discussed. Focus on the next things, right? Because what is over is over. There's nothing that we can do to change it. I know that some of you might not be in a good mood today. Since yesterday you are in a very bad mood, and it's okay, right? It's okay to even appreciate that I have those feelings and say that I'm in a bad mood. Things didn't go well for me. But from then on, what do you do, right? So let me work on those aspects. Let me try and do the best that I can with respect to ADMATs, my B School application strategy, my GDPI prep, and the profile building, right? So that's what, let's focus on that. That's the future. Let's not worry about the past, okay? So wish all of you all the best. Hope this has helped you, and thank you so much for joining. I'll see you guys very soon.